This is problem 2 off of the review problems for Exam 1. So in this problem, we're asked to find the average number of cases of rabies per city in a bunch of different regions. And it's important to remember that no matter what data we're given, we're always looking for the same essential thing. We want to know the total number of cases, and we want to divide that by the number of cities. And no matter what your data is, if you can calculate those two things, then you divide them to find the average. So region 1, this is your basic, grade school average. Your total number of cases is 2 plus 4 plus 3 plus 3 plus 2. The number of cities is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I am looking at 14 over 5, or an average of 2.8 cases per city. And I should leave that as a fraction, 2.8. Nobody expects an average to talk about an actual real cases, so this 0.8 is not a problem. You can leave it that way. So 2.8 cases per city, 14 cases, and 5 cities. I want to actually label those because that's going to be useful to know later on. Region 2, most of the hard work's already been done for me. This is as simple as 26 cases in 7 cities, and if I divide that, I get 3.8 cases per city. Okay? So those are our first two. Excuse me, that's 3.7, not 3.8. That's 3.7. The third one, I've got to do a little bit more work to figure out the total number of cases. I have 3 cities, and each one of those cities has 1 case. So those 3 cities are responsible for 1 case each, 3 cases total. 2 cities with a total of 2 cases, so I get 4 cases from those 2 cities put together, and 4 cities with a total of 3 cases. So I'm taking the number of cities and multiplying by the number of cases in each city. Now, how many cities do I have represented? And here's where it's really helpful to remember exactly what you're trying to calculate. The number of cities is 3 plus 2 plus 4, so there are 9 cities here, and I'm looking at a total of 3 plus 4 plus 12, or 19 cases over 9 cities, and that gives me an average of 2.1 cases per city. So there we go. In problem 4, some of the work's already done for me, some of it I have to do. The total number of cases is 19 plus 14. That's how many cases I have in this region. The total number of cities is 3 plus 2. So I am looking at, that's about 20, so it'll be 33 cases across 5 cities. So that gives me an average of 6.6 cases per city. Now that, that's a decimal place there, 6.6 cases per city. Now, if there is an outbreak happening, it's likely happening in the city with in the region rather, with the highest average number of cases per city, and I would say that would be region 4. That would be my outbreak. The next thing I want to do is calculate the average number of cases per city across the entire region. So to do this, I know what I need. I need the total number of cases divided by the total number of cities. And I've just got to go back to all of my information. Excuse me, that would be cities. I've got to go back to all of my information and just look at how many cases I have. So in region 1, there were 14 cases. In region 2, there were 26 cases. Region 3 had 19 cases, and region 4 had a lot. It had 33 cases. So if I add those up, I'll get the total number of cases in the region. And at the bottom, I need the total number of cities. 5 plus 7 plus 9 plus 5. So I get a total of 92 cases across 26 cities. Now, before I calculate this, I want to pause for a moment. What do I expect for my answer? I expect my answer to be between 2.1 and 6.6. It's probably going to be on the smaller side because most of the cities, most of the regions had a relatively few number of cases. There was only this one set of 5 cities that had a lot of cases. So I'm expecting a number between 2.1 and 6.6, but probably closer to 2.1 than to 6.6. And when I go calculate it, I get 3.5. So I have an average of 3.5 cases per city, and that's great. That's in the right range. That doesn't guarantee that it's correct, but at least it tells me it's kind of past a reality check. And I could have done that for every one of these. Now let's look at problem D. Problem D is in another state, and I'm not giving you the number of cities. I'm just telling you that 40% of cities have no cases, and 25% of cities have 2 cases, and so on. So how do you work with this? Well, I could imagine, what if there were 100 cities? I could just pick some whole number of cities to work with, and 100 is going to make my life easy because it's going to make the calculation easy. So if I had 100 cities, then this would be essentially 40 of them. 25 of them. And now this becomes a lot like region 3. I know 40 cities have this many cases. 5 cities have this many cases. So I can set it up just like this. 40 cities, 40 zeros. 25 twos, 20 threes, 10 fours, and 5 sixes. In the language we've used in class, these are my weights, my number of times that each one of these values counts for. And I want to divide by the sum of the weights, the number of cities that I am pretending that I have. Remember, I don't know that there's actually 100 cities. So in this case, these weights sum up to 100. So I'm going to add up all of these things and divide by 100. And if you do that, you will get 1.8. There's an average of 1.8 cases per city. Does that seem like a reasonable average? Sure, after all, like 65% of the cities have fewer than 2 cases, and there's only a few cities with a lot of cases. So that seems plausible. The second half is a slightly different question, and that says, forget about those cities that have 0 cases. I don't care about them. I want to know what is the average number of cases in cities that have active rabies. So only in this set of cities. So in this case, I'm going to ignore these 40 cities. And my calculation is going to look very familiar. I have 25 cities that have 2 cases, and 20 cities that have 3 cases, 10 cities with 4 cases, 5 cities with 6 cases. But I'm not looking at all 100 of the cities. I'm only looking at the 60 cities that had cases of rabies. The 60 or the 60%, whichever way you want to think of it, that count in this description. So when I add those up, I'm going to take those numbers and divide by 60 instead of by 100, and I'm going to get a larger number than I got for this because I'm eliminating all of those zeros. So if I do the calculation, what I get is 3 cases per city in the cities which have at least 1 rabies outbreak. So those are the answers for problem 2 from the review problems.